The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. Not the calm kind of silence. The heavy kind. The kind that pressed against the chest and made even ancient beings uneasy. At the center of the chamber floated the galactic map. It was alive, constantly shifting, updating, glowing with the colors of thousands of civilizations. Every empire, every trade route, every war zone, all of it was visible, except one place. At the far edge of the map, where the spiral arms of the galaxy should have continued, there was nothing. No stars, no dust, no background radiation, just darkness. The Council called it Null Verge, a dead region, a cosmic scar. Explorers had tried to enter it before. None returned. Probes vanished without signals. Long-range scans showed no energy, no mass, no movement. The official answer was simple: nothing lives there. But the map told a different story. A young cartographer stood at her station, her hands trembling slightly as she zoomed in on the dark region. She had spent her entire life studying star patterns. She knew chaos. She knew randomness. This was neither. The darkness had a clean edge. Too clean. It looked less like a natural void, and more like something that had been cut out. She checked the historical layers of the map, peeling back thousands of years. Civilizations rose and fell. Borders shifted. Stars went supernova. But the darkness stayed the same. It never expanded. It never shrank. It was maintained. Her breath caught as a thought formed. Dangerous. Forbidden. Someone erased themselves. Before she could speak, alarms echoed softly through the chamber. The map flickered. Council members turned, irritated at first. System updates happened all the time. Then the colors shifted again. Inside the darkness, a single point of light appeared. Small, dim, simple. Not a complex alien sigil. Not a precursor glyph. Just a basic star marker. Old, outdated, almost primitive. The label translated automatically. SOL sector, human origin. The chamber erupted. Laughter echoed from several council platforms. Disbelief from others. Impossible, one elder said. Humans collapsed thousands of cycles ago, another replied. They never mastered stable expansion. Too emotional. Too divided. The marker pulsed once, then vanished. The laughter died instantly, because the sensors activated. Across the chamber, warning symbols bloomed in red. Deep space arrays, positioned far beyond normal borders, were lighting up all at once. Energy spikes, gravitational distortions, impossible readings from inside the dark zone. Something had reacted. The Council ordered an immediate data lock. No public broadcasts. No civilian access. The cartographer stared at the empty space where the marker had been. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She whispered, barely audible. That wasn't a relic. No one answered her. Far from the chamber, at the very edge of known space, a long-range observation station drifted in silence. Its crew had watched the dark zone for decades with nothing to report. Until now. Their instruments screamed warnings as space itself bent. Stars near the boundary dimmed, as if light was being swallowed. Then, for less than a second, something moved inside the darkness. Not a ship, not a fleet. A pattern. Too large to be random. Too precise to be natural. The station attempted to transmit the data. The signal never left. Inside the darkness, unseen by the galaxy, systems awakened that had been silent for ages. Ancient reactors reached stable output in perfect synchronization. Vast structures adjusted positions measured in light years. No alarms. No panic. Only readiness. A single internal message spread across hidden networks, simple and calm. External attention detected. Observation phase complete. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the map stabilized. The darkness remained. But something had changed. Where there had once been emptiness, there was now a faint outline, barely visible, like a shadow behind glass. A boundary. A border. The Council realized, too late, that the galaxy had made a mistake. The darkness was not empty space. It was space that belonged to someone. And whatever lived beyond the map had just noticed the galaxy looking at it. The Galactic Council did not sleep. They pretended to, of course. Sessions adjourned. Lights dimmed. Official statements were prepared and delayed. But across the highest levels of power, minds remained active, turning the same impossible question again and again. If the darkness belonged to someone, why had no one known? In the sealed archives beneath the council chamber, Historical analysts were summoned. Records that had not been opened for millennia were unlocked. Data crystals older than most empires were removed from stasis. One name surfaced again and again. Humanity. The records were thin. That alone was strange. Most extinct species left behind ruins, warnings, or at least stories told by their conquerors. Humans left fragments, unfinished logs, scattered mentions, contradictory conclusions. According to the official narrative, humans had reached interstellar travel early but stalled. Their technology was crude compared to modern standards. Their governments fractured constantly. Their wars were frequent and emotional. They fought each other more than they fought outsiders. When stronger empires expanded, human territory shrank. Trade stopped. Colonies went dark. Eventually, the maps simply removed them. No final war. No last transmission. Just absence. At the time, the galaxy had barely noticed. Now that absence felt heavy. A senior historian replayed an ancient diplomatic recording. The image was distorted, but a human figure stood before an alien council, speaking calmly despite visible exhaustion. "We do not ask for protection," the human said. "Only time." The recording ended abruptly. No follow-up existed. No one remembered granting that request. Another analyst found a military report from a long-dead empire. It described a border incident near early human space. The report classified humans as non-threatening and strategically irrelevant. But one line had been flagged and never explained. Human fleets withdrew without pursuit. Enemy expansion halted shortly after. The pattern repeated across records. Where humans vanished, expansion slowed. Where humans retreated, wars faded. Where humans were erased from maps, borders stabilized. The council did not like patterns that pointed back at them. To calm growing fear, they announced a limited expedition. One ship, minimal crew. Officially, it was to confirm that the dark region was still lifeless. Unofficially, it was to prove that the map glitch meant nothing. The exploration vessel Silent Vector launched without ceremony. Its hull carried no weapons powerful enough to threaten a minor empire. Its sensors were the best the council could offer. As it approached the dark zone, long-range scanners began to fail, not with damage, but with confusion. Data returned clean, then empty, then clean again. Stars appeared where none should exist, then vanished. Space itself seemed undecided. The crew crossed the boundary without realizing it. There was no shockwave, no distortion, no warning. One moment they were in mapped space. Next, every navigational system recalibrated itself. The stars were back. Dozens of them. Perfectly arranged. The captain frowned. "That's not possible," she said. "We're still inside the void." The science officer ran the scans again. Then again. "These stars aren't natural," he said slowly. "Their radiation is filtered." The ship moved forward. And then they saw it. A line in space. Not visible to the eye, but undeniable to every sensor. A gravitational seam stretched endlessly in both directions, like a scar across the universe. It was not a wall. It was a border, older than any known civilization, engineered with precision that made modern technology feel crude. The ship drifted closer. Power readings spiked, not aggressively, but inquisitively. Something was examining them. The crew tried to send a message back to the council. No signal escaped. Inside the border, space behaved differently. Energy loss was minimized. Background noise was near zero. Even the ship's own emissions seemed muted, as if reality itself was asking them to be quiet. Then the first structure appeared. At extreme range, it looked like a shadow. As they closed in, its scale became impossible to measure. It orbited nothing, anchored in place by forces the crew could not identify. It was inactive, or so it seemed. The structure did not hail them. It did not move. It simply existed, like a sleeping giant. The science officer whispered, "This wasn't built for war." The captain nodded. "It was built to last." They found more. Stations embedded in interstellar dust. Silent relays positioned between stars. Entire networks designed to function without constant maintenance. None of it broadcast signals. None of it demanded attention. This was infrastructure built by a species that did not expect visitors or witnesses. A junior crew member finally asked the question none of them wanted to say out loud. "Why hide all this?" No one answered. The ship's AI interrupted them. "Captain," it said, voice unusually strained, "I am detecting observation." The sensors showed nothing. Then every display changed at once. A simple message appeared. No encryption. No threat. Just words. You have entered a sealed region. State your purpose. The language was modern, clean, adapted instantly to the crew's understanding. Humans. The crew froze. No weapons charged. No alarms sounded. No hostile maneuvers occurred. The border did not close. It held steady. The captain swallowed and responded honestly. "We are explorers," she said. "We believe this region was empty." There was a pause. Not a delay. A consideration. Then a second message appeared. "This region was marked empty for your safety. You were not expected to return." The implication struck harder than any threat. Marked empty. Not forgotten. Marked. The captain asked, "Why hide?" The response came faster this time. "Because the galaxy does not survive what follows us." Around the ship, distant stars adjusted position slightly, like sentinels shifting their stance. The crew realized they were not surrounded by defenses. They were inside a buffer. A place designed to absorb attention. A place meant to be seen instead of what lay beyond it. The message continued. Humanity withdrew by design. You call it disappearance. We call it containment. Data began streaming into the ship, controlled, deliberate. Star maps beyond the border. Systems hidden behind gravitational masking. Fleets positioned not at borders, but at angles that suggested interception paths. Every calculation pointed outward, never inward. Humans were not guarding themselves from the galaxy. They were guarding the galaxy from something else. The ship's AI tried once more to transmit to the Council. Nothing. The human presence did not block it. Space itself did. The captain felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "Did we wake up?" she asked. The reply came after a longer pause. "Yes. Far beyond the border, in a region still uncharted even by human maps, ancient movements began again. Patterns long dormant shifted. Forces older than recorded time adjusted their trajectory. The border responded. Not with panic. With readiness. Hidden systems activated across light years. Structures that had waited in silence began precise, minimal movement. Inside the silent vector, the crew finally understood the truth. Humanity had not vanished because it failed. Humanity had vanished because it succeeded at something no one else ever had. They had found a threat so vast that the only way to win was to step out of history. And now, because the galaxy had looked too closely, that threat had looked back. The silent vector did not move. Not because it could not, but because every instinct aboard told the crew that movement now required permission. The stars beyond the border burned softly, filtered and dimmed, as if reality itself was wrapped in a veil. Navigation markers adjusted without command. The ship's engines idled at minimum output, restrained by forces with no protocol covered. No alarms sounded. That was what frightened them most. The human message still hovered on every screen, steady and patient. Yes, that single word echoed louder than any warning siren. The captain forced herself to breathe slowly. Panic would change nothing. Curiosity had brought them here. Control might still save them. "Observation," she said aloud, careful with every word. "You said we woke something. What is it?" The answer did not come immediately. Instead, the stars shifted again. Not randomly. Not violently. They rearranged with intention. The crew watched as distant points of light aligned into vast geometric patterns, triangles spanning solar systems, arcs curving across parsecs. These were not defenses hastily raised. They were positions already prepared. The ship's sensors struggled to interpret the data. Distances bent. Timestamps conflicted. It was as if space inside the dark region operated on rules slightly offset from the rest of the galaxy. The science officer whispered, This is controlled space. Not claimed. Controlled. Finally, the reply arrived. It has many names. You would not recognize them. A pause. It follows signals. It follows growth. It follows attention. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The captain asked the question no one wanted answered. And humans, you were followed? The stars dimmed a fraction more. Yes. Images flooded the displays without warning. Not simulations. Memories. Ancient human colonies bloomed into existence. Bright, loud, full of transmissions and trade routes. Then the noise grew. Faster expansion. Louder signals. More energy. Then something changed. The stars began to disappear. Not explode. Not collapse. They were simply removed. Entire regions went dark, swallowed by something that left no radiation, no debris. Fleets fired weapons that passed through empty space and struck nothing. Communications cut off mid-sentence. The human colonies did not fall to war. They were harvested. The crew watched in horror as the memory continued. Humans learned quickly. They stopped transmitting. They dimmed their stars. They abandoned worlds not because they were defeated, but because they were noticed. The captain felt sick. "You didn't fight it," she said. "We did. We lost." The words were not bitter. They were factual. The images shifted again. Human fleets, smaller and quieter now, lured the unseen enemy away from populated regions. Entire task forces vanished without record. No victories were celebrated. No monuments were built. The enemy did not retreat. It followed. So humanity changed strategy. They stopped expanding. They stopped broadcasting. They stopped existing in ways the galaxy could see. Human space folded inward, hidden behind layers of gravitational distortion and artificial silence. Stars were masked. Energy signatures were recycled perfectly. Even waste heat vanished into controlled sinks. Humanity turned itself into a shadow. The ship's AI struggled to process the data. "Captain," it said, "this level of control would require constant sacrifice." The reply appeared immediately. Yes. The images showed entire human systems being shut down, stars dimmed deliberately, populations relocated or placed in stasis, civilizations choosing disappearance over annihilation. No pleas. No evacuation broadcasts. Just quiet endings. The crew finally understood. Humanity did not vanish suddenly. Humanity faded itself out, layer by layer, century by century. The captain clenched her fists. Why not warn the rest of the galaxy? This time, the pause was long. Stars flickered at the edge of perception. Because you would not have listened. The words struck harder than any accusation. You expand. You broadcast. You celebrate scale. It hears that. The science officer leaned forward. "The border," he said slowly. "This region, it's not your home." The answer came with something new. Respect. Correct. The displays shifted again. The dark region was not humanity's center. It was a shield. A vast buffer zone placed deliberately between the galaxy and something far worse. Human space lay deeper still, hidden not just by technology, but by choice. This region is meant to be found, not crossed. The captain's voice was barely steady. "Then why let us in?" The reply came softly. "Because the map looked back." The crew realized the truth at once. The moment the galactic map updated, the moment the darkness was observed, questioned, scanned, something ancient noticed the shift. Not the ship, the attention. The border had done its job for thousands of years. Until now. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, not from impact, but from space itself tightening. The stars beyond the border dimmed rapidly, like candles in a closing room. The AI reported, "Captain, long-range detections beyond this region are changing." The human message appeared again, sharper now. "The follower is moving." Images showed vast distortions far beyond the border. Regions where space folded inward, paths forming that ignored normal physics. Something was navigating toward the galaxy using methods that did not rely on distance. The captain felt a cold realization settle in her chest. It's coming because of us. It is coming because the galaxy spoke. The border responded instantly. Structures once dormant adjusted alignment. Massive constructs rotated into precise angles. Energy flows increased, but never spiked. This was not panic. This was a procedure. Human fleets appeared, not in dramatic formations, but in scattered, overlapping positions designed to block paths that only humans seemed able to calculate. The crew saw ships shaped for endurance, not intimidation. Hulls scarred by time, not polished by ceremony. These were not symbols of power. They were tools. The human presence addressed the crew one final time. "You should not be here." The captain nodded slowly. "Then send us back." Another pause, heavier than before. "We can. But the galaxy will not forget what it has seen." The implication was clear. Even if the ship left, even if the council erased the records, the act of observation had already changed something fundamental. The follower had been patient for ages. Now it had a direction. The captain looked at her crew, faces pale, eyes wide, understanding dawning in silence. "What happens now?" she asked. The answer did not soften. Now we prepare. Beyond the border, stars continued to dim, not from fear, but from purpose. Human space tightened its veil, systems locking into roles assigned long before the silent vector was ever built. Humanity had not waited for this moment. They had expected it. And somewhere deeper still, beyond even the shield, ancient human commands activated that had never been meant to run again. Because the galaxy had made a sound, and something that hunts sound was listening. The transition happened without motion. One moment, the silent vector floated near the border. The next, space itself rearranged around it. There was no jump flash, no acceleration, no warning. Reality simply agreed to a new position. Stars appeared closer, sharper, quiet. The ship's AI stuttered, recalculating coordinates that refused to stay fixed. "Captain," it said carefully, "we have not violated any physical limits. We were reassigned." The captain understood the word choice immediately. They had not traveled. They had been placed. Before them hung a structure so vast that the mind rejected it at first. It was not built around a star. It did not orbit a planet. It existed as its own center, layers upon layers of rotating rings, dark and luminous at once. A star forge. Matter flowed into it from nowhere visible. Energy streamed outward in controlled rivers. At its core, a newborn sun ignited, stable, quiet, perfectly tuned. The science officer whispered, "They're making stars." The human message returned, no longer distant or abstract. "Welcome to a maintenance node. You may observe. You may not record." The captain swallowed. "Why show us this?" A pause. "Because you will ask why we did not share our warning." The structure adjusted slightly, allowing clearer view. The scale was overwhelming, but the design was humble. No symbols of dominance. No unnecessary ornament. Everything existed for function. The crew watched human vessels move with slow precision, each one performing a task so specific it felt rehearsed across centuries. No shouting. No commands barked over open channels. No visible hierarchy. Just coordination. The captain felt something she had not expected. "Shame. You could have ruled the galaxy," she said quietly. "With this technology, no one could have stopped you." The reply came gently. "Yes." Then, after a moment. "And then it would have found you too." The displays shifted again. This time, the images were not of destruction, but of debate. Human councils. Arguments. Faces marked by exhaustion and fear. Scientists speaking urgently. Military leaders arguing restraint. Civilian representatives demanding answers. The moment was clear. This was when humanity first understood the scale of the threat. The follower was not an empire, not a species, not a force that could be negotiated with. It was a process. It consumed complexity. It erased the noise. It reduced civilizations by removing the patterns that defined them. It did not hate. It was refined. The captain watched a human scientist speak in the memory, voice shaking. "It doesn't chase territory," the scientist said. "It chases density, culture, expansion, attention. The louder we are, the clearer we become." Another human replied, bitterly, "Then we stop being loud." A third voice, older, tired. "Then we stop being seen." The memory ended. The human presence returned. "You ask why we did not warn you." The captain nodded. "We tried." New images appeared. Human envoys standing before alien councils. Data shared. Simulations offered. Predictions shown. The reactions were always the same. Disbelief. Dismissal. Amusement. Other species could not accept an enemy that did not conquer or communicate. An enemy that did not leave survivors or trophies. To them, humanity sounded afraid. Weak. You called us emotional. You called us unstable. You called our fear a flaw. The words were not accusatory. They were remembered. The images continued. Human warnings ignored. Borders crossed. Expansion celebrated. Then silence. Species after species vanished from the edges of the galaxy. Not conquered. Not enslaved. Just gone. The galaxy adjusted its maps. And moved on. The captain lowered her eyes. "So you decided to disappear?" "No." The response was immediate. "We decided to stay." The distinction mattered. Humanity did not flee beyond the galaxy. They did not hide in another universe. They placed themselves between. The dark region was not an exile. It was a line of duty. The crew saw the full scope now. Human space was layered. Outer zones designed to be noticed. Inner zones masked. Core systems are silent beyond imagination. Every human system was positioned not for growth, but for interception. Every fleet trained not for victory, but for delay. The captain's voice was tight. Delay for what? The human reply carried something new. Wait. For you. The structure before them dimmed slightly as energy rerouted. Somewhere far beyond, something shifted, too distant to see, too close to ignore. The follower was moving again. Faster now. The maintenance node did not react with urgency. Instead, it began shutting down non-essential processes. Stars completed their ignition cycles and were released into controlled trajectories, hidden immediately behind veils. Nothing was wasted. The captain realized something horrifying. You've done this before. Yes. The images showed previous cycles, previous galaxies, other regions where humanity had once stood watch. Each time, the follower was delayed, redirected, starved of signals. Each time, humanity paid a price. Entire generations lived without light, without expansion, without being remembered. They chose obscurity over extinction for everyone else. The science officer whispered, "How long can you keep doing this?" The answer did not come right away. When it did, it was honest. Until we cannot. The silent vector trembled again, this time from internal conflict. Its AI struggled to reconcile loyalty to the Council with what it was learning. "Captain," it said quietly, "if this information reaches the galaxy, expansion will continue. Attention will increase. The follower will accelerate." The captain understood. Knowledge itself was dangerous. She looked at the human structure, at the silent fleets, at the stars being born only to be hidden. "What do you want from us?" The human presence seemed to consider the question carefully. "We want you to leave. We want you to forget details. We want the galaxy to remain ignorant, for now." A pause. "And we want you to understand why we will not always answer again." The captain felt the weight of that responsibility crush down on her. "If we go back," she said, "the Council will send more ships." "Yes. And if they keep looking, then the shield fails faster." The truth was unbearable in its simplicity. Humanity was not hiding out of fear. They were hiding out of care. The captain straightened. "Then let us help." The response came softer than any before. "You already have." The stars around the maintenance node began to dim further. The veil thickened. The sense of observation withdrew slightly. The human presence delivered its final explanation. "The galaxy believes power is shown. We learn power is withheld. You will return. You will say we are gone. You will say the darkness is empty. And for a little longer, it will be true." Space shifted again. The silent vector felt itself released, not pushed, not pulled, but permitted to exist elsewhere. As the structure faded from view, the captain saw one last thing. A human ship, ancient and scarred, drifting alone at the edge of the veil. It did not retreat. It held a position, watching outward, standing where no one else would. When the silent vector reappeared near known space, its systems flooded with delayed alerts. The galaxy rushed back into noise and color. Behind them, the darkness remained. Silent. Still. Patient. But the captain knew the truth now. The map did not end in darkness because nothing was there. It ended in darkness because someone had chosen to stand there, quietly, endlessly, so the rest of the galaxy never had to. The silent vector returned to known space, carrying silence heavier than any data. Its crew spoke little, not because they were ordered to stay quiet, but because language felt inadequate. When the ship finally reached the edge of Council-controlled territory, reality felt wrong. Space was louder here. Messier. Radiation leaked freely. Civilian broadcasts overlapped in careless layers. Alive. The captain filed a report stripped of detail, just as the humans had asked. The dark region remains empty. No life detected. Anomalies are inconclusive. The Council accepted it with visible relief. They wanted reassurance, not truth. But truth has a way of leaking through cracks. It began quietly. A mining outpost near the galactic rim failed to check in. No distress call. No debris. Then a trade corridor lost 3 ships in the same hour. Vessels simply gone between scheduled pings. Analysts blamed pirates. Then navigation errors. Then local anomalies. The explanations grew thinner by the day. At the far edge of mapped space, long-range observatories began reporting something worse. Movement. Not ships. Not fleets. Patterns. Massive distortions formed far beyond the dark region, where even human warnings had once faded into disbelief. Space bent inward there, as if something enormous was pressing against it from the outside. The readings made no sense. There was no energy spike, no radiation signature, no measurable mass, just absence rearranging itself. The council convened in an emergency session. Fear returned to the grand chamber, but this time it was sharper, more focused. They ordered scans of the dark region again. The galactic map resisted. Layers refused to update. Data lagged behind real time. It was as if the map itself hesitated. Then, slowly, the darkness changed. It did not expand. It was compressed. The boundary that had once been a soft void tightened into a defined shape. A curve formed where none had existed before. A contour. Something was pressing from the other side. Across the galaxy, sensitive instruments detected the same phenomenon, a universal drop in background noise. Signals arrived late. Some never arrived at all. Space was quieting. That was when the first scream reached the council. A civilian colony, young, bright, and loud with celebration, sent a fragmented transmission. "We're losing stars. No enemy. It's like the sky is folding." The signal was cut off. The system did not explode. It simply vanished from the map, gone as if it had never been. Panic erupted. Fleets mobilized. Weapons armed. Borders reinforced. The galaxy did what it always did when afraid. It made noise. And the noise spread. The captain of the silent vector watched the chaos from her station, dread settling deep in her bones. She recognized the pattern immediately. "It's attention," she whispered. Too late. Near the dark region, the first human response began. No announcements were made. No warnings issued. Human systems that had been hidden for centuries adjusted alignment. Gravitational veils tightened. Stars dimmed further, not in fear, but in calculation. Human fleets emerged. Not all at once. Not dramatically. They appeared where they were needed, exactly when they were needed, already positioned along trajectories no other species could see. The first engagement did not look like a battle. A distortion surged toward the galactic rim, an invisible front advancing faster than light should allow. Human ships did not fire at it. They fired around it. Space folded into controlled geometries. Corridors collapsed. Paths that should have existed suddenly didn't. The distortion slowed. Not stopped. Delayed. Human ships vanished one by one as they held those impossible angles, sacrificing themselves to maintain barriers no one else even understood. No explosions marked their deaths. Just absence. The galaxy watched in confusion as systems near the dark region were spared, not because the enemy was destroyed, but because it was redirected. Humanity was not fighting the threat head-on. They were shepherding it. Every movement was precise, cold, mathematical. Entire human task groups positioned themselves in places guaranteed to be lost, simply to force the threat to choose longer paths. Time was the currency. Humanity spent it freely. The Council finally saw the scale of the war they had never known existed. Human fleets were not defending territory. They were defending everyone else's future. The captain received a secure transmission. It did not come through normal channels. It arrived directly, bypassing systems that had no idea how to stop it. "You should not be watching this." She closed her eyes. "You said we woke it," she replied softly. "Now the galaxy is making it worse." Yes. On her display, a human tactical overlay appeared, vast, layered, and terrifying in its elegance. Projected paths showed where the threat would go if unchecked. Entire arms of the galaxy went dark in the simulation. Civilizations erased in quiet succession. The captain felt her breath catch. "Can you stop it?" The reply was slower this time. "We can delay it. We can bleed it. We cannot kill IT. Not yet." "What happens if the galaxy keeps fighting?" she asked. The overlay was updated. The future was shortened. It feeds faster. At the front lines, alien fleets charged blindly into distortions they could not see. Their weapons struck nothing. Their formations broke apart as space betrayed them. The threat did not retaliate. It did not need to. Every ship that fired, every signal broadcast, every desperate call for help only sharpened its path. The captain realized the cruel truth. Courage was useless here. Only restraint mattered. Humanity understood that. Elsewhere, a human commander stood on the bridge of an ancient vessel, its hull scarred by centuries of silent duty. His eyes never left the projection before him. "Lock sequence," he said calmly. His ship moved into position, directly between the threat and a densely populated region. He knew the math. His ship would not survive. Neither would his crew. There was no hesitation. "Execute," he ordered. The ship collapsed its own core into controlled singularity, tearing a hole in space that forced the threat to divert. The commander did not scream. He did not send a final message. He simply vanished, one more unseen subtraction in a war built on them. Across the dark region, hundreds of similar decisions unfolded. Humanity burned itself away piece by piece, not to win, but to buy time. The council finally understood what the darkness truly represented. Not fear, not secrecy, sacrifice. The captain watched the overlay stabilize slightly as human actions slowed the advance. "How long?" she asked. The answer was immediate and devastating. "Long enough for you to choose differently." She knew what that meant. The galaxy had to stop expanding, stop broadcasting, stop fighting loudly, or humanity would run out. And when they did, the overlay was updated one last time. No future appeared beyond that point. The captain closed her eyes as alarms echoed across the galaxy, not from explosions, but from systems realizing their neighbors were simply gone. Humanity held the line in silence, and the darkness moved, not unstoppable, not unchallenged, but patient, because it knew something the galaxy was only beginning to learn. This war would not be decided by strength. It would be decided by who was willing to disappear first. The galaxy began to understand fear in a new way. Not the sharp fear of invasion, not the loud fear of war. This was quieter. Systems went dark without explosions. Trade routes ended without battles. Entire civilizations vanished without a single recorded enemy. Maps updated slowly now, as if hesitant to confirm the truth. Every disappearance followed the same pattern. First, communication delays. Then background silence. Then nothing at all. The Galactic Council's fleets were everywhere, and nowhere useful. Weapons fired into empty space. Sensors returned clean readings where devastation should have been. Admirals shouted orders that reached no one. The enemy did not announce itself. It simply advanced. And wherever it moved, humanity was already there. Human fleets no longer stayed hidden. They revealed themselves only when necessary, and never where anyone expected them. They appeared in deep interstellar voids, near collapsing stars, inside gravitational shear zones no other ships dared enter. Each appearance was brief. Each disappearance is permanent. Alien commanders began to notice something terrifying. Human ships did not retreat. They ended. They positioned themselves in places that could not be escaped from. They overloaded reactors not for attack, but to reshape local physics. They collapsed stars not in rage, but in calculation. Every human action traded existence for delay. No speeches. No broadcasts. No pleas for recognition. Humanity fought without witnesses. The Council finally intercepted a fragment of internal human communication, never meant to be heard. It was not dramatic. It was routine. Unit 12 has completed obstruction. Window extended by 4.6 cycles. Acknowledged. Mark them honored. Always. That single word echoed through the Council chamber. Always. No medals followed. No memorials. Just acknowledgement. The galaxy realized something horrific. Humanity had been preparing for this war before most species discovered faster than light travel. They had planned for loss as a constant, not a failure. The captain of the silent vector was summoned before the council. They wanted answers now. Real ones. She gave them nothing they wanted, and everything they needed. "They aren't fighting for victory," she said calmly. "They're fighting for time. And every time you panic, every time you expand, every time you scream into the void, you shorten that time." A council elder struck the platform in anger. "Then what do you expect us to do? Hide?" The captain met his gaze. "Yes." Silence followed. "Humanity didn't survive because they were stronger," she continued. "They survived because they learned restraint. They learned when not to exist." The council rejected her words. They always did it first. Expansion continued. Emergency colonization accelerated. Fleets broadcast warnings across every frequency. The enemy surged in response. Human losses multiplied. Still, the humans did not stop. In the deep dark, beyond even the buffer zones, something new activated. Human command structures older than recorded history came online. Not AIs, Not machines. People. Humans who had lived entire lives in isolation. Generations raised for a single purpose, to make decisions no one else would. They called it the Last Light Protocol. It had never been used before. The protocol assumed one thing is truth, that eventually, delay would not be enough. Human commanders gathered across hidden systems, not physically, but through channels that did not exist until needed. No speeches were given. Everyone already understood. A human strategist spoke once, quietly. We have reached the point where our loss is no longer by sufficient time. No one argued. Another voice followed. The galaxy is still loud. A pause. Then we must be quieter than we have ever been. Plans unfolded. Terrible plans. Humanity would no longer just block the enemy. They would starve it. Entire human regions prepared for shutdown. Stars dimmed past recovery thresholds. Energy grids disconnected permanently. Populations entered deep stasis or volunteered to stay awake until the end. Some chose neither. They stayed behind. The captain received one final direct message from Human Command. Not a warning. A confession. We are about to become smaller than history can record. She felt tears form and did not wipe them away. What happens to the galaxy? She asked. That depends on whether it can learn from our absence. Across the dark region, humanity initiated the first full silence collapse. It was beautiful. Stars winked out one by one. Not violently, but gently, as if tucking themselves away. Entire systems folded into null energy states, leaving no signal for the enemy to follow. The threat slowed. For the first time, I truly slowed down. The galaxy felt relief and mistook it for victory. Celebrations erupted. Fleets stood down. Expansion resumed cautiously. The enemy adapted. It always did. Humanity knew this would happen. They watched the threat probe empty space, searching for noise that no longer existed. And then, finding it. The galaxy. Human Command reached the final decision point. The one they had prayed never to reach. A single human voice spoke across the network, steady despite the weight. We can seal it. The room, physical or virtual, fell silent. To seal it, the voice continued. We must collapse the entire buffer region. Everyone understood. Human space. All of it. No one voted. No one needed to. Consent was universal. The captain felt it before it was announced. A pressure in space. A deep tightening. Like the universe drawing breath. She looked toward the dark region one last time. What about you? She whispered. The reply came slowly. We were never meant to remain. Humanity began the final containment. Stars burned inward. Space folded into controlled nothingness. Entire fleets locked themselves into positions that guaranteed no return. Human voices filled internal channels, not with fear, but with memory. Stories told softly. Names spoken once. Love passed quietly from one generation to the next. No one screamed. No one begged. The enemy surged, too late. The buffer collapsed. The dark region folded in on itself, becoming something new. A sealed absence. A wound cauterized by sacrifice. From the galaxy's perspective, it looked like nothing happened. Just one more empty place on the map. But the captain knew better. Humanity did not go extinct. They concluded. The enemy struck the seal and failed. Again and again, each time weaker. Until finally, it stopped. The galaxy waited. Nothing followed. Silence held. The galactic map updated days later. The dark region was gone. In its place was a mark no one remembered adding. Not a warning. Not a name. Just a note, written in the simplest possible language. Contained. The council stared at it in awe and horror. They finally understood the cost. Humanity had not saved the galaxy by winning. They saved it by choosing to be the last thing the darkness ever reached. And now, for the first time in history, the galaxy was alone. The galaxy did not celebrate. It did not mourn either. It hesitated. For the first time since recorded history, there was no enemy to point at, no victory to announce, no explanation that fit inside old words. Trade resumed slowly. Fleets returned to port. Borders stabilized. But something was wrong. The silence felt unfinished. The captain of the silent vector stood alone in an observation hall, watching the place where the dark region had been. There was nothing there now, not even darkness. Just an absence so complete that instruments refused to describe it. The council called it resolved. The maps labeled it contained. But containment was not peace. It was maintenance. And maintenance always failed eventually. Deep in council archives, something unexpected began to surface. Not signals, not messages. Records. Human records. They did not arrive as transmissions. They appeared inside old data structures, woven into forgotten backups and deprecated formats, like seeds planted long ago, waiting for the right moment. The council panicked at first, fearing a delayed threat. But the records did not contain warnings. They contained instructions. Simple ones. Reduce broadcast power. Limit expansion corridors. Preserve silence between stars. And one line, repeated across every recovered fragment. If we are gone, you are the shield now. The council argued. Some said humanity had overreacted. Others claimed the threat was truly gone. Many wanted to return to growth, to reclaim the stars humans had hidden. But the captain knew better. She had seen the enemy hesitate. Not because it was weak, but because it had lost its trail. The galaxy had become quieter by accident. Humanity has done that. And now the noise was creeping back. At the edge of the seal, where the universe folded into something that refused to be measured, small anomalies began to appear. Not breaches. Tests. Reality flexed. Then settled. Flexed again. The council ignored them. The captain did not. She requested permission to approach the sealed region. Denied. She went anyway. Her ship was old now, retrofitted with reduced emissions and silent drives. Less by design, more by imitation. She had learned from humanity without ever being taught directly. As she approached the boundary of the sealed absence, something unexpected happened. Her sensors did not fail. They responded. A whisper of structure revealed itself. Not physical, not energetic, but intentional. The seal was not static. It was active. Maintained. By what? She powered down everything that was not essential and drifted. And then, she felt it. Not a voice. A presence. Faint. Fractured. But unmistakably human. Not alive in any biological sense. Not conscious in the way minds were measured. But not gone. The captain spoke softly, unsure if sound mattered. You stayed. The response was not words. It was an agreement. Humanity had not fully vanished. They had distributed themselves, broken into fragments woven into the seal itself. Their technology, their decision-making frameworks, their values encoded into the structure holding the enemy back. They had become functional. Guardians without bodies. Watchers without names. A final form of duty. The captain's hands shook. You didn't tell us, she whispered. The presence replied, not with sound, but with memory. Humans had debated this. If the galaxy knew they remained, hope would turn into dependence. Expansion would resume under the assumption that someone else would pay the cost again. So they chose something harder. To be present, but never visible. To remain, but never answer. To protect, but never be thanked. The seal shifted subtly, responding to distant pressure. The enemy was still there. Not attacking. Waiting. It always waited. The captain understood then what Part 6 had only hinted at. Humanity had not ended the war. They had passed it on. Not as a burden. As a responsibility. She returned to council space carrying no proof, no recordings, no data she could share. Only certainty. The council listened politely, then dismissed her concerns. Until the first breach attempt occurred. It was small. Localized. Barely noticeable. A research station vanished near the seal. No signal. No debris. The galaxy froze. Old fear returned. But this time, there was no humanity to answer it loudly. The captain stood before the council again. This is where they stopped, she said. And this is where we decide who we are. A council member asked the question no one wanted to voice. What if we can't do what they did? The captain didn't hesitate. Then we don't deserve the time they bought us. Silence fell. The seal flexed again. The enemy tested it harder this time. The human presence responded automatically, adjusting, redistributing pressure, but something was missing. Scale. Humanity has been vast. The galaxy was not. Not yet. The council faced a truth sharper than any weapon. They could either continue as they were and be found again, or they could change. Radically. Permanently. They chose slowly. Broadcast limits were enforced. Expansion treaties rewritten. Whole sectors agreed to go dark voluntarily. Civilizations learned to exist closer together instead of spreading endlessly outward. It was painful. Many refused. Some left anyway, blazing trails of noise into the void. They were the first to vanish. The seal held. but it strained. The captain returned to the boundary one last time. "I don't know if we can be like you," she said quietly. The presence responded, not with certainty, but with something profoundly human. "Neither did we." The seal brightened briefly, not with light, but with coherence. The enemy recoiled, not defeated, discouraged. The captain finally understood the final truth of humanity's sacrifice. They had not believed themselves special. They had simply been the first to realize what survival actually required. Not dominance, not victory, not remembrance, but the courage to choose less so that others could have more. As the galaxy settled into its new, quieter existence, a legend began to form. Not about humanity's power, but about their restraint. About the species that reached the edge of everything and chose to stop, not because they were forced to, but because no one else would. And deep within the seal, fragmented but vigilant, the last echo of humanity remained, watching not the enemy, but the galaxy, waiting to see if it had finally learned. The galaxy changed without announcing it. There was no single law, no universal declaration, no dramatic turning point marked by ceremony. Instead, the change arrived quietly, unevenly, carried by countless small decisions made in fear, in memory, and in humility. Stars dimmed on purpose, not dying, lowered. Civilizations learned to speak less, to listen more. Long-range broadcasts became rare. Expansion slowed, then stalled, then, among some species, stopped entirely. It was not peace. It was discipline. At the edge of the sealed absence, the universe remained tense, like a held breath that never fully released. Instruments still refused to describe what lay there. Equations failed. Language broke down. But the seal held. And within it, something watched. Not with eyes. Not with thought as the galaxy understood it. Humanity remained as a pattern. Fragments of logic. Ethical constraints. Decision trees grow from sacrifice and restraint. What had once been people was now principle, distributed across the structure of the seal itself. They did not think. They responded. Pressure from the other side rose and fell in cycles. Each time, the seal adjusted. Not stronger, just correct. The enemy never stopped testing. But it did stop advancing. Time passed. For the first time in history, the galaxy began to measure eras not by expansion, but by quiet. 1,000 years after the sealing, the galactic map updated again. No alarms sounded this time. Cartographers noticed the change hours later. At the former edge of the dark region, where the map had once read contained, new data appeared. Not stars, not territory, a boundary label, untranslated at first. When the system finally rendered it into galactic standard, the chamber fell silent. Protected space. Below it, a secondary line appeared, smaller, almost hesitant. Humanity's watch has ended. The council argued over the meaning for decades. Some claimed it meant the threat was gone. Others insisted it meant the seal had stabilized permanently. The captain, old now, one of the last who remembered the truth firsthand, said nothing. She knew better. She returned to the boundary one final time. Her ship was barely more than a shell, engines reduced to the quietest possible hum. She had refused upgrades that increased output, refused modifications that made her louder. She had learned. As she drifted near the seal, something felt different. The presence, once faint but constant, was thinner, not weaker, complete. "You're leaving," she said softly. The response came not as agreement, but as release. Humanity's role was done, not because the enemy was destroyed, but because the galaxy had changed enough that the enemy no longer recognized it as prey. Noise had fallen below threshold. Complexity had stabilized. Growth no longer screamed outward into the void. The galaxy had become uninteresting. The most dangerous thing a hunter can encounter. The captain closed her eyes. "You trusted us," she said. The presence did not respond. It did not need to. Across the galaxy, a new generation grew up without knowing the name human. They lived under quieter stars, traveled shorter distances, built inward instead of outward. Their myths were smaller, but deeper. They told stories of a time when the universe almost noticed them, of a silence that saved everything. And sometimes, rarely, they told a legend of a species that reached the edge of the map and chose not to cross it. The enemy lingered beyond the seal for a long time. I searched. It waited. But without signal, without expansion, without attention, it starved. Not destroyed. Obsolete. Eventually, Even it moved on, seeking louder places, younger universes, brighter mistakes. The seal did not pursue. It did not celebrate. It simply remained. Until one day, it did not need to. The protected space faded, not into explosion, not into collapse, but into normalcy. Physics reasserted itself. The absence relaxed. The galaxy barely noticed. That was the final success. Humanity's greatest victory was not remembered. It was unnecessary. On the galactic map, the boundary dissolved entirely. Where the darkness had once been, stars appeared. Ordinary, quiet, unremarkable stars. No monuments marked the place. No warnings. No names. Just space. As it should be. The captain passed away not long after, alone in her quarters, watching a star she knew had once been hidden by human design. Her final log entry was simple. They didn't save us by being strong. They saved us by knowing when to stop. Long after her ship was decommissioned, long after her words faded into archives no one opened anymore, the galaxy continued. Smaller, quieter, alive, and somewhere, deep in the structure of reality itself, a final human principle persisted. Not as command, not as memory, but as instinct woven into the universe. Do not shine so brightly that the darkness learns your name. The galactic map no longer ended in darkness. It ended in possibility. Because once, at the very edge of everything, humanity stood watch and taught the universe how to survive itself.